Hi, this is a presentation on analysis and proposal of the viability of tiny homes in South Florida. It's for Sustainable Building Engineering, and my name is Paul Duson. So right here, we got a visual representation of what a tiny home could look like. This is just one example. They can look many different ways, but basically looks like a house, right? Just smaller. Shows you that it looks pretty cozy and could be a viable option to live in. We're going to discuss how it works and the viability and the design for one. So we're gonna start off with the site analysis. Right here, we got the location of South Florida, hot, humid area, a lot of hurricanes. So we gotta make sure we build this thing with good foundations as well as structural materials, or structural design, right? Also materials need to be resistant to humidity, heat, all that stuff. So, pests. So you gotta make sure you have good materials, as well as we got local government hints here that have zoning codes and permitting. So make sure that everything is along those guidelines and we don't have any problems. So we gotta just have everything clear before we start. And let's start off with the design concept. So we want a sustainable design. So that's with materials and like insulation. So like we want to build it with sustainable materials and make sure that we have insulation so that we're not, wasting resources trying to keep this thing cool or hot on the cold and hot days that we have, mostly hot days in South Florida, to be honest. But along with that, we want to maximize every square inch of space that we have in this tiny home because they're tiny homes, obviously, right? So um, we use multifunctional furniture, like a loft, so kind of like a two-story design almost. I'll show you in a picture later in the presentation. Open floor plan so that it feels like a bigger space, things like that. And we also want to integrate with the surrounding environment. So like there's a sliding glass door right here. You can open that. You can go outside, have the outside be part of the inside part of the outside, almost kind of like a one system. And with that, you can use passive cooling because you can airflow through it. You can also use certain other things like rainwater harvesting as integrating with the environment to help with utilities and our stuff. This is more discussed later. So the interior spaces must be prioritized in functionality and livability. So the kitchen, the dining room, bedroom, bathroom, those are super important to be like as efficient as possible. We want to make sure that they are functional, usable, comfortable. You want to live here, so you have to focus on those. The outdoor spaces are very important. Small patio, roof garden, covered parking. If you want to have a covered parking standalone on the outside, gives you alternative versus a garage, right? It's very, people want to have that. Very important right here is privacy and security. Landscaping and fences kind of, demarcate the boundaries of the property line. You want to be sure that nobody's looking in your big windows that you obviously have. So, this is a very important part of it, very important aspect. Moving on. This is the picture right here where you can see there's a loft room up top. Down there's like a small kitchen. Like it looks very livable, cozy, yes, but through the use of these big windows, it gives a sense of, and the open space gives a sense of having a bigger area than you actually think, right? Um, so the open indoor spaces, large windows, and then integration of the inside and the outside, right? So the big doors you can open, you can walk in and out. You can have people over going in, the party's going inside, it's going outside, it's all over the place. So moving on. The environmental impact. So they usually, compared to a traditional house, a tiny home is going to have less impact. So the environmental footprint, there's reduces in resource consumption because less to build, less to construct, so less CO2 emission from construction related processes like transportation and construction processes, and less water usage because of just less stuff in general. Because there's less air to cool, less area, less volume of the building. There will be a reduced load on electricity from air conditioning, as well as lighting. The water is reduced. The load on the water is reduced if you use rainwater harvesting and gray water recycling, and less to heat as well. So all in all, it's they pretty environmental for houses compared to regular houses. So when you get to energy efficiency and off-grid options, there are some interesting solutions. BIPV, building integrated photovoltaic. You can use this with battery storage systems and pretty much have, a good amount of electricity on hand to run a small area, right? So if you put solar panels on the side of the building and on the top, you can manage a good amount of things with that. When it comes to rainwater, which is very common, there's a lot of rain in South Florida, you want to harvest as much as you can. So rainwater harvesting, low flow fixtures, so your sink, your shower doesn't use as much water, right? So you can have less impact on the storage, water storage of the aquifers we have in South Florida, which is a good thing. And with waste management, we could use composting toilets and to save water, another aspect of saving water. But it's also important to have trash and recycling, man. Very important. Otherwise, to keep the communities clean, healthy, for the residents. Super important. When it comes to cost estimation and budget, we want to make sure we have everything accounted for. Construction costs like labor permits, site prep, land acquisition. These are very important, as well as long-term operating costs, utilities, maintenance, repairs, and landscaping. That protects, if repairs happen, you protect your value as well as the livability of this home. You can't just, you have to account for all these things to make sure this is feasible, right? So, community engagement and impact. So providing affordable housing. This is one of the more affordable ways to live, because you're using less. You're using less land, less building, less electricity, less water, right? Everything is less, smaller area. I mean, if you can do with not having a giant, house, if you don't have, a huge family, or if you're more focused and you want to live a simpler kind of, life, or you just don't have enough money, this is a good option, right? It can reduce housing insecurity, which is a big problem in South Florida with the very expensive housing situation we have. Promotes environmental sustainability. So, we want to preserve our resources and preserve our environment. It's obvious, right? And it also promotes social inclusion by giving, if we make communities, communities will hopefully bond, right? There's opposition that can be thought of as they may impact property values because, they're less valuable than bigger homes. So you don't want to do that for some people, right? They could have an impact negatively on the neighborhood aesthetics. If people have a certain view they're looking for in their neighborhood and you see a tiny home, it might be like, what is that? Doesn't match everything else. And you want to make sure that we have enough resources to support any extra residences on the property and land. Addressing these oppositions, we want to make sure we have transparent communication and problem solving in order to build trust with those that oppose us, then provide case studies where they have been successfully implemented, and then actively involve those against us in the community members and planning and decision-making process to make sure that everybody is happy. And closing, the project is a viable option for South Florida. So it addresses housing affordability, sustainability, community development, and resilience. So all of these can be affected positively by building these. So it results in a more resilient, equitable, and vibrant community in South Florida. And then I got my references page right here. And that is it. Thank you very much.